Hey guys, welcome. Welcome to another ramble. I hope you are having a beautiful day. I hope you are taking time to be present because that's where all the magic happens. Seriously. I don't know if you guys have noted that when you are profoundly present, like everything just kind of like flows with ease. And it's almost like no matter what you encounter in the present moment, it's just like so easy to be with it because you know that as soon as something arrives, something also leaves. you know? And that's why it's good to learn not to hold on to anything, you know? Not only that, like I notice like a lot of people when they hold on to things, that's when they create a lot of their own problems. This is not a good analogy, but say it's raining outside and somebody is like upset about it, and then they're so fixated on the rain and how cold it is and how dreary it is outside, and they get fixated on that. But then the next moment the sun comes out, you know? So it's just like if you're still stuck in that rainy and gloomy tude, then you won't even notice that the sun is out. Anyhow, today's ramble is going to touch on, I don't know, a couple of things that were heavily on my mind this morning. The first one is going to be, it had to do with fear and stories. And I apologize, there's a lot of noises going on in the background. My neighbor has a pet rooster, so if you've been hearing like a rooster crow in my videos, that's what's going on. And now I hear either a lawnmower or an airplane. And I'm like, should I close my door? Hold on, I think I will, or else I will be distracted, and you might be too. All right, fears and stories. That's what I was going to touch on today. But I'm still kind of trying to figure out how I'm going to stitch the two together. I might even make separate videos for the two different topics, but we'll see. Okay, let's start with a story. And I don't know about you guys, but I just love stories. Stories are such a great way to learn lessons. And if you think about it, we are living a story. We are living our story. We are a part of someone else's story, and everyone else is just living their own story. At the end of the day, it's just like I think to myself, when it's time for me to exit this life, this body, and I kind of like picture myself like looking back on my life story and what I wrote and what I created and what I participated in. And let me tell you, I know that when I leave, I would like to read a very interesting story. I want to be like, oh wow, like I went on all these adventures and I discovered all these new things and I conducted all these experiments and I came to all these conclusions, and I had all these insights, and it was so interesting. Like I'd like to, or no, it's not a hope. I know when I pass on and I get my hands on my story of life, I'm gonna smile and I'm gonna be like, wow, this was a fascinating storyline, a great adventure, and wow, let's write another one somewhere else. But with that said, and that point being driven home, I mean, we are. We are writing our own story. We are living it, And my whole thing is like, you are the main character of your own story. And it's funny. I kind of operate like that in the world. Um, I don't really care too much about, I know this might sound weird to some, but I don't really care what's going on in other people's lives. I have a tendency to spend a lot of time on my own in my own world, you know? And it's not that I don't care about other people's lives, but other people have their own stories that they're writing, and they have their own journey that they have to go on, and they have their own lessons and their own like adventures that, you know, they need to meet, and that has nothing to do with me. You know, it's all an inside job, and we all have our own perceptions on life, you know? I think for a long time I was not the main character of my story. I think I spent most of my time being like the side character, or just one of those people that stand in the background in someone else's story. You know, because I think you can relate. Like, we like to help, but we don't like the attention. So we have a tendency to just kind of be like a wallflower or fly on the wall, and then we just kind of swoop in and help out, and then we go back in our corner. Yeah, that's what I did for most of my life, and I kind of still do that, but at the same time, I do know that I am the main character of my own story, and I'm no longer gonna let anyone dictate the way that goes, you know? So, like, if somebody is trying to get me to do something I don't want to, or like something that doesn't feel right to me, I'm probably going to say no. I'm going to decline, and I'm going to keep on keeping on, you know, writing my story, as you should too. And also, I think you also know that you really can't control people. You know, people just do what they want to do. You may not agree with it. You might agree with it. I don't know. But, you know, people just do what they do. You know, you can't stop them. You just let them be. Let them be. And then you just kind of go off on your own path and do your own thing, you know? It's so much more peaceful that way, honestly. Um, so, what I'm trying to say is, I think when I read my story, I think I'm going to have a pretty interesting read. And I'm not trying to be arrogant in any way, shape, or form, merely because of the fact that I lived my life fearlessly, you know? In a lot of my videos, I'm like, feel the fear, do it anyway. You know, you won't know until you try, you know? So for me, it's just like I live life fearlessly, and I don't think I let too many things hold me back from living life on my terms, you know? And that's why I don't really subscribe to a lot of things. I don't watch television, you know, I don't really listen to music. Um, I don't really care about like what people are gossiping about. Like, I'll take it into account, but I don't like proactively seek that kind of information, you know, because other people have their lives to live, and that's not my business, you know. If they want to share it with me, cool, but I'm not going to be like poking and prodding and trying to get into everybody's business, you know. None of my business, has nothing to do with me. Um, yeah, and that's why I'm just like not really into like social gatherings, because I've noted that at social gatherings, depending on the type of people you are mixing with, you know, a lot of people like to talk about other people. I don't really care about that. Like, if you want to talk about ideas, you want to talk about dreams, you want to talk about like goals, you want to talk about like things you've overcome, lessons you've learned, you know, something that is of benefit, you know, something that will enhance, sure, let's talk about it. But as far as like, oh, Sally did this and Dick did that, and oh, did you hear about Jane and Joe? I don't really care about that stuff, honestly. Don't care. um, Also, like, I don't know, like, people like also like to talk about like other people's, I don't know, flaws. And I don't mind talking about flaws if we're going to talk about like how we can do better. But if you're just talking about flaws to, I don't know, make someone look worse, then I don't know, it's weird. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah, you know how some people like to just talk about other people, I don't know, sometimes to make themselves feel better, sometimes so they can compare themselves to that person for an ego boost. I don't really like to talk about people like that. Like, if we're going to talk about that person, like, tell me something that you would say to their face. Like, not something that you would just say behind their back. But, anyways, because, yeah, I mean, we all have flaws, right? But if you're not going to tell somebody about their shortcomings or your perception of their shortcomings, how are they going to be aware? How will they have the opportunity to fix it? They won't. So that's why, like, for me, it's like talking behind someone's back versus just like, venting and then having a conversation with the person so that you can like work on it. That's different. That's a difference. Um, I'm going to talk about story time and after I just said like talking about someone else. But I think you guys are aware that I have a tendency to go into detached observational mode so that I can make I want to say, realistic and logical analysis of what I am viewing in every moment. And I try not to cast judgment. I instead try to understand, like, what's going on and why this person is reacting this way or responding this way and what's going on in their mental tinkerings and their operating system. That's why I go into like a detached observational mode. But I'm going to tell you a story. And it's all going to tie in, I promise. So the other night, I was working with my coworker. She was, I had never met her before. It was my first time working with her. And of course, like we had like common communication where you're just trying to fill the silence with words. And, we were like asking about each other. And I'm going to touch on some points that I observed. First of all, we were talking about closing methodology, like closing the store. And I asked this person, have you ever closed before? And she was like, no, I'm scared. And I was like, oh. I said, I understand. I said, the first time I closed a store by myself, I was afraid too. But, I've noted that, it's not really as difficult as I thought it would be. And if a situation arises and I really need help, then the general manager is like a phone call away, and she's very helpful and she's very responsive. So I don't think there's much to worry about. And then we went along to like talking about her vacation, her upcoming vacation. And I was like, whoa, that's exciting. Where are you heading off to? She's like, oh, I'm going to go to Las Vegas. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm like, do you have family there? Like, are you just going there just to go? And she's like, yeah, I'm going there. It's my first trip, like, outside of the islands, and I'm scared. And I was like, oh. I said, oh, okay. Um, Dude, I'd be excited. Like, something new, something cool, like that should be fun. And she's like, yeah, well, I'm scared of riding airplanes and I get sick. And my partner's grandparents thinks that we're gonna die. So they made sure that we were sitting together on the plane. At this point, I'm like, okay, this is very questionable. But I've noticed a common theme. This person is living in absolute fear of everything. And then, we continue this conversation, and I'm like, so what do you like to do? And she's like, oh, I like to bake. And I was like, oh. I said, well, if that makes you happy, you should probably try to do more of that. I said, have you considered, like, selling your baked goods? Like just starting maybe even starting a business, and she's like, oh, I'm scared. And I'm like, oh. I said, well, why are you scared? And she was like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, you enjoy baking, so if you're scared, I said, why don't you just try like selling to friends first? And then, by word of mouth, then, if your baked goods are popular, you can expand from there. And she's like, I'm scared. And I just kind of like took that into account, and I was like, this person is literally stopping themselves from becoming and experiencing more of life because they're scared. And I've made videos on this before about how fear is the mind killer, you know, because it just stops you from growth. It stops you from like evolving. It stops you from just expansion in general. And that's why I say, like if this person is writing their story, and that's how I'm tying this all in. And I mean, I just feel like that story would be really boring and uninteresting to me, because it would literally be about I'm scared, I'm afraid. I'm scared, I'm afraid. I could have did this, but I was scared and I am afraid. And yeah, I had all these dreams and goals, but I'm scared and I'm afraid and I didn't do them. The end. I was just like, so for me, I'm just like, okay, tying these two things together, it's some food for thought, It's just like, are you living your life fearlessly, or are you living your life in absolute fear? Because it's your story and you're the main character. Not only that, are you letting other people's fears encroach on your story? Because I notice like a lot of people, they may have the confidence and the will and the determination, like that seed of will and determination to, forge their life. But then a lot of times they will hit a roadblock and get stuck there because of other people's opinions. But these people, their opinions, they're like the side character. They're like the background characters of your story. So should you really allow their opinions to hinder what you want to do and the story you want to write for yourself, the life that you want to live? I think we all know the answer to this. And I think it's very clear that a lot of people live very unfulfilling lives and lives full of regret because they've stopped themselves from living in a fearless way, you know? So, yeah, food for thought. What kind of story are you want to, or what kind of story are you writing? What kind of life do you want to live? At the end of your day, do you want to like lie down on your bed and think, wow, I feel very satisfied. I lived and did everything that I've always wanted to do. And there were some things that I didn't get to do, but I'm okay with that, you know? Or are you going to be like, man, I should have did this, I could have done that, I regret it? Which one, Because we all have choices in life, and yeah, it all boils down to a decision. Your decision. Not anyone else's decision. It's your life, right? Anyways, this video has gone on way too long. If you learned something cool, if you didn't, that's cool too. Blessings to one and all. Thanks for stopping by. And remember to be present and to continue to invest in yourself, because you are the most important investment. Amen.